Well, I've always been interested in nature as just to recreate in, really, and to sort of wonder about. So as a kid, I spent a fair amount of time outside hiking, especially during 1 month in the summer. And I was drawn to ecology, I'd say in 7th grade. I had a teacher who really did exercises, and I had a biology teacher who really took us through ecology, although I had no idea that's what it was at the time. And it made sense to me. I wanted to know how the world worked. I wanted to know why leaves were green, or animals behaved the way they did. And so it just sort of came out of a passion for nature, is what I would say. The climate change piece came a little later. Obviously, when I first started learning about nature and did a lot of my training, climate change was only low on the radar. But in fact, right out of college, I did an internship with George Woodwell, who was one of the first people to talk about the Mauna Loa curve, the curve of increasing CO2 in the atmosphere, and the effects of a greenhouse climate in the US and around the world. And so I actually got an introduction to this in the very early 80s, just as people were really starting to talk about it. And it's always been one of those threats and one of those fascinating features of how is nature going to respond. I have a PhD in biological ecology from the University of California at Davis. The joy of being older is you get a lot of experience. So I had undergraduate experience in Ohio, where I was mainly really learning plant taxonomy and spending a lot of time in the field identifying plants. I went from there to working in ecology, and therefore small mammal trapping and community description and testing why plants need water, essentially, testing competitive interactions among plants for nutrients. And then with the Nature Conservancy, I have worked on everything from restoration, which was how do plants interact so we can get the ones we want in a site, to how do we get rid of the ones we don't want, the invasive species, and thinking a lot about invasive species, to thinking about sea level rise, and now carbon storage. So a lot of different facets of nature. So we're thinking about a number of these issues, from connected landscapes, north-south and coast to inland, to sea level rise, and not only predicting where sea level rise might happen, but how we might adapt to it, both for the natural system and for human infrastructure. And also about carbon, specifically because so many of Florida's natural systems are fire managed and fire dependent, but of course fire releases a lot of carbon. So we're trying to quantify how quickly that carbon is restored in the vegetation, and whether we can actually continue to burn even in a time when we want to store carbon.